Pa gremo. Pozdravljeni, dragi gledalci, drage gledalke. Danes imamo s Tanito prav posebno edicijo vokulskega podcasta in sicer malo smo posodobili formata, ne? Tako da lahko delamo tudi z ljudmi, ki so oddaljeni od nas več tisoč kilometrov. Tako da ja, ne bom preveč dolgovezla. Danes je z nama Markom Walsh. Pravijo mu tudi, oziroma ja, imenujejo ga tudi Mr. Embodiment. In vabljeni k prisluhu, vabljeni k ogledu. Še za vse tiste, ki boste gledali na YouTubu, lahko si spodaj vklopite podnapise, subtitles, pa vam potem YouTube sproti prevaja tiste, ki ne razumete tako dobro angleško. Tako da, ja, zdaj pa lahko začnemo. V angleščini. Yeah.
So, hi, Mark.
Hello, beautiful language. Didn't understand much.
That's okay. We'll talk in English now. We'll do our best. Should I start with our first question?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You do it.
Yeah, we were thinking with starting with your story. So how did you even came to know embodiment, and how is it that you do what you do?
Yeah, or maybe a little introduction and then your story.
Okay, so my name's Mark. I'm involved with all things embodiment. I train embodiment coaches, have a podcast on embodiment, wrote books on embodiment, worked in business, worked in war zones, worked in Ukraine. Embodiment applied to many, many things, but particularly coaching, some leadership, trauma, other areas as well. So how did I get into that? So I guess I hit the limits of the education of the West. So Western culture educates people academically. You know, I was smart, I read a lot of books. And despite that, I was, as a teenager, everyone was saying, oh, you're so clever, you know, you go to university next. But I was miserable. I was suicidal. I was alcoholic. I was failing in my first relationships. And basically I realized, like, hey, because this question came up, like, if I'm so smart, why am I so dumb? Right? Like, if I'm so smart, why am I having all these problems? So it didn't really make sense to me. And I went, oh, then, well, there must be other ways to be educated. So I started looking. I found yoga. I found Aikido, particularly in my first week of university. I walked into the Aikido club because I knew I needed something, and martial arts was good. I was actually selling drugs at the time, so I thought it'd be good to learn some martial arts to protect my small business interests. I don't anymore for many years, so if the police are listening to this, it's too late. So I thought I'd learn a martial art, and I saw Aikido, and it was very, very beautiful to me. And something about the discipline and the body and the movement of it really spoke to me on a very deep, kind of poetic level. And I realized I needed it, like I needed it to save my life. And yeah, that was the beginning of the story.
Okay, thank you. Should we continue with embodiment?
Yeah. I would.
Do you have any other questions for that?
Yeah, when you said why, you know, you were so smart, but you know the things didn't really go well for you. So I was thinking, you know, okay, we have so much knowledge in our head, we know what to do, but if we don't integrate it with our bodies, then nothing will happen. Do you think this is kind of a, you know, most people's problem?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of information, right? Like I could, you know, Wikipedia, everything's on this phone, I could possibly dream of, you know. So we have all this information, but it doesn't actually help. So it's the difference between knowing about Slovenia from a book and having been to Slovenia and having had Slovenian friends and eating Slovenian food and hung out, you know, in Lake Bohim or Bled or whatever. Like there's a big difference in knowing something in that way. And most of what we could call kind of useful life skills really aren't at the level of intellectual knowing. And certainly wisdom definitely isn't at the level of intellectual knowing. Like, you know, everyone has read a book on losing weight, but how many of us are going, oh, I need to lose weight, right? Or whatever, any example you pick. So what most of life comes down to, whether it be leadership or parenting or, you know, stress management, anything, is actually what I'd call embodied intelligence. So that's a set of skills around awareness and self-regulation, empathy, leadership, that you can learn, but you don't learn them in the same way as you learn about something. It's more like learning Slovenian language, which I may have to do in the future. I'm not going to be able to just kind of download that, you know, like I'm going to have to practice it. I'm going to have to be around it. It's different.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure that lots of our audience doesn't really know what embodiment is. So would you please just, keep it like short?
Yeah. So it's the umbrella term that brings together all the body arts that involve movement and personal growth. So, for example, the gym wouldn't generally be considered an embodied art because it's involving movement, but you're not generally doing it from the perspective of awareness and personal growth. Yoga usually would be conscious dance, martial arts, even improv comedy. So the term for all these body things that involve awareness and personal growth, we can think of it as a subjective study of the body. So you can think of the body as an object, as a thing. But if we think of the body as a part of our being, and that's a normal way of being, like if you touched each other on the shoulder, you wouldn't, you're touching you're touching each other, right? You're not just touching the shoulder like I would touch this pen. So we actually have this intuitively, this sense of the body that it's integral to who we are. So embodiment concerns that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, one question about your dream job. I mean, was this something you dreamed about as a kid or teenager, that you would be doing something like that, or it went in its own way?
I sort of invented my own job, which I think is often the best way.
Yeah.
I loved Aikido, and I was actually very disheartened when I left university because I didn't know how to earn a living from it. And then Aikido, came conscious dance and yoga and meditation, all these other things. And it's very difficult to be a teacher of that professionally. But I realized there was something that brought together these different things that I now call embodiment, right? And that thing could be used in many areas. So I kind of invented my job, first working, doing corporate workshops, and then, training coaches, yoga teachers, humanitarian aid workers, other people. But I sort of had to invent my job, really. And it's still sort of weird. Like I'm like, if I'm at a family Christmas gathering, they're like, what do you do again? And like, I wish I could just say like plumber or doctor or something that everybody knows. So yeah, now, I look at it as a job now. It was definitely my dream job at one point. Now I think of it as, it's a good job. It's a nice job, but it's what I do for a living.
Okay. You also are coming back to Slovenia, right? You mentioned.
Yes, I'm going to be there twice. I'm teaching. It's going to be a free evening in the near future that Ava, my student there, Ava is my main student there, we put together. That's on the 8th of March, and then 2-day workshop afterwards for coaches. And then later on in the year, we're doing like a week-long intensive somewhere beautiful in the summer. So I love Slovenia. It's one of my favorite places. So I'll come any chance I get.
But I also remember that like when we were at your workshop, the last one in Slovenia, you mentioned that you might come live here. Is that still like your plan, or?
Yeah. So I've just applied for an Irish passport. My family are Irish, so I can apply for an Irish passport. And of course, Ireland's in the EU. So right now with a British passport, it's quite difficult to come and live there. But with an Irish passport, it's relatively easy. So if I get the Irish passport, which I should, because my cousin did, and we have the same grandparents, then I should, I'm going to at least give it a try, and I feel like Slovenia is a very wholesome culture. I think it's quite healthy in many ways. Honestly, I've taught in 50 countries, and Slovenia is just one of my favorite places to teach. I think it's not just physically beautiful. Obviously, it's known for its natural beauty. But it's also culturally a nice mix of sort of I call them the 3 Europes. So there's Eastern Europe, Northern Europe, and Southern Europe, and they all have pros and cons. They all have advantages and disadvantages. Italy, great place for a holiday, wouldn't want to work there. Germany, wouldn't want a holiday there, great place to work. Eastern Europeans I have a lot of love for. I was married to a Ukrainian, and Slovenia for me is a sort of nice mix. It's sort of like Italian holidays organized by Germans, but with a bit of East European toughness. Or another way I sometimes say it's the least traumatized of the ex-Soviet countries. So, or the ex-East European countries, so the what would be the word, Eastern Bloc countries. So yeah, I think it's a nice combination. So I thought I'd give it a try.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's just in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so weird.
Yeah, geographically, culturally,
Yeah.
it's very much in the middle of Europe. And, you know, I think you take life seriously enough, but not too seriously. You know what I mean? So, and people there are very teachable. It's definitely one of my top 5 countries to teach in. I really enjoy people there, very humble, open to learning. Like, I find people very receptive. You know, I'm in Berlin in 2 weeks, and that's hard work, right? Really, I'm not looking forward to it. And it's difficult teaching in Berlin. I mean, Germans, it's some nice people as well, of course, like everywhere, but Slovenia, I just like.
But you must be able to disarm anyone with your humor, I guess, because like anyone who knows your work just a little bit, or has seen your workshop, or has seen your social media, that you use humor quite a lot. Oh, we have
Germans, they do not
yes,
find my
sorry.
humor very funny. Yes, not everybody loves my humor. Sometimes the Californians and the Germans get upset by it, but yeah, that's a very Irish cultural trait, very Anglo-Irish, I would say. It's a big part of my teaching is to use a lot of humor. And, you know, embodiment should make you lighthearted, you know, like what's the point in taking life? There's too many terrible things in life to take it seriously.
Yeah, I love that about your workshop. Yeah, it's really helpful. We have Ida's dog Mila here, so she's joining the conversation right now. I'm sorry.
No worries. Hello. Who are we talking to? It's the dog. Hello, doggy. Doggy's a good embodiment teacher. Doggy's not my embodiment. Dogs, like, it's a good way of thinking about embodiment, actually. Like, embodiment is what a dog picks up from you immediately. You're friendly, or dominant, or this kind of thing. Like, a dog will immediately, kids are the same, dogs get it. Like, dogs really get it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not about your physical size and shape, it's about your qualities, how you are in your body. So, like, a dog immediately is just going, are you friendly? Are you in charge? Those questions, right? Are you food? Do you have food? There's usually. So it's like also people have those questions, right? The same as a dog, you know, like a child will have those questions. Can I trust you? You know, are you the boss? Basic stuff.
This also makes me think like of self-regulation, because I think that, you know, petting a dog or maybe a cat like helps you relax easily. So I wanted to ask, what would you say, or what I don't know if advice is the right word, or yeah, what advice would you give to people on self-regulation, how to do it, or how to even become aware that you are in some kind of distress?
Yeah, so it's self-regulation, co-regulation. So other people and animals we could call co-regulation is actually in many ways more effective than self-regulation. Like, that's if a baby's distressed, that's how we comfort them, right? We don't say go do yoga, you know. And then we can say eco-regulation. So, you know, when I'm in beautiful Slovenian countryside, I certainly feel a lot more relaxed, a lot more regulated. And then theo-regulation, so meaning, spirituality, if you're into that. I think there's a regulation that comes through connecting to purpose, for example. But self-regulation is probably the one we have most control over, even if it's not the most effective. And people can get better at that. So, you know, on trainings, I'll teach people to work on their self-regulation skills. You know, that's a thing we develop. So we have centering exercises, and it's very useful for coaches, for example. Like, I've got a coaching session after this. A woman's coming to my house. She's quite stressed about her problem. She's coming to my office, and, you know, like, I'll co-regulate her, but we'll also be teaching her some self-regulation.
Well, I think that's really important, because to me it feels like many of diseases wouldn't even exist if we would have the skills to, you know, self-regulate or co-regulate. Was that the right word? Co-regulation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, most of the health is stress related in the Western world, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was intrigued by your today's post. I will quote it, and then we can comment.
I love this. I think I just ADHD think of something, throw it on my. I'm literally like sitting on the toilet usually while I post, and then later on, people like years later, people are like quoting me on it. But go for it. What did I say today? I kind of.
Yeah. I'm no longer pretending that people mysteriously become disembodied. We are being disembodied by those who profit from it. Yeah, maybe a comment on it, as we are not just embodied within our house, or, you know, just ourselves. We are embodied in culture, in the world we live in.
Yeah, I mean, what's the purpose of Facebook? Is to take your attention, right? How does it do that? It agitates you. It makes you anxious, angry, greedy. And in all those situations, you lose contact with yourself. Like the purpose of all advertising is to take you out of your own body and into the values of someone else. You know, the purpose of, I mean, we have this from childhood, don't we? Your little kid doesn't want to sit still. Well, bad luck. They're in school. And, I'm not saying that's all bad. Kids need to learn discipline. But certainly, and in the workplace, we're not really interested in how people feel. You're a human resource. So I think there's a case to be made that there are disembodying forces of various kinds, and they could be cultural movements, they could be institutions, they could be technologies, and I don't think those things are accidental. Like the case of Facebook is just very clear. They have a profit motive. They're trying to get you agitated and greedy and angry, and they're trying to take you away from your own self and into their phone. I mean, how many times have you been on your phone and gone, oh God, half an hour's gone by? You've lost yourself in that time, right? Or you suddenly realize you need the toilet because you're just not in contact with yourself until you need to wait. Yeah. So it's totally a conspiracy.
This also reminded me of your quote from your short movie. Tanita made a short movie.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, Aphrodite's, and the quote from movie goes like, you should say it.
I don't know how to translate it in English, to be honest.
If our bodies will still be in a profit of society, if big companies profit from our bodies, we will still be
we will keep raising the society of Aphrodite in terms of archetype of Aphrodite being the dark part of that archetype, that only that her life is all about beauty and the outside world.
So the body is a performance, as an object. So it could be like I have to look a certain way because society demands it, male or female. It could be that I'm just have to work really hard and push through, not listen to my body telling me to slow down and get some rest, get ill as a result. The body is objectified in various ways, right? And those are often have consequences which go against my values, certainly.
So on that note, we can talk a little bit about decadence, I assume, because that's also something you talk about on YouTube on your YouTube channel, right? So could you share a little bit more about that, why this is important for you to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we're always embodied in place and history and context, right? Cultural context, geographical context. I'm different sitting by the lake in Slovenia than I am in, running through New York, right? But we're also in historical context. So the historical context of the West could very broadly be described as decadent, as a sort of declining empire, essentially. The West is a declining civilization. Historians have different models of this. They argue about this, but many have these cyclical models where they see that civilizations rise and fall, and they tend to have certain features when they fall. And the West, which I love very dearly, and I think is very close to my heart in terms of values and what it represents and means, is now in a period of decay and decline. And that leads to hedonism, like an obsession with hedonism, narcissism, and sort of self-obsession. Usually sex, sports, and food become very obsessed because the hedonism, and nihilism, just people don't believe in anything, nothing means anything anymore. There's also various other economic features, environmental features, everything from celebrity chefs to mass immigration. These are things that the Romans had as well as us. They had celebrity sports people as celebrity chefs. They had mass immigration from other cultures, various features that you'll tend to see as empires decline. And we have them all in the West. And I think you have them far less in Slovenia. So one thing I was exploring in Slovenia was what I'd call wholesome pleasure. So we have sort of, meaning. You need to make meaning because we're not giving it. We need to find self-regulation, a certain amount of discipline. So we're not just I enjoy life, but I think there's a balance there. And hedonism doesn't lead to happiness. As someone who's an ex-drug addict, alcoholic, I can promise you that. Feel free to do that experiment for yourselves, though, if you're listening. I don't recommend the experiment because it can end fatally. But I would say that wholesome pleasure, community, meaning, there are some antidotes to decadence. And you know, I live in a less decadent town than I used to. I chose to move to a more wholesome town in England. And I regard, you know, for example, if I walk by a group of teenagers in England, they'll almost certainly be smoking drugs. They'll probably have 7 different genders between them. And they'll probably insult me as I walk by. And that has not been my experience in Slovenia so far. So, I just find it a much more normal, happy, healthy, wholesome place. And I hope
So
you don't
far.
develop many of the problems we have in England or America or Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, I haven't experienced that in Slovenia.
No,
either.
me neither.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, kids smoking drugs, that yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a
Other than that-
given in England. It's almost certain they'll be drinking or drugging in England. Kids with mental health issues is another one I hear about a lot. I'd say 50% of my friends with teenagers, their kids have either drug addictions or mental health problems.
Mm,
And that's not right.
No.
Like, I mean, the odd kid maybe has a mental health problem, but not 50%. You know, it's a really high percentage. And I just go, you know what, if I'm going to have kids, I want to have them somewhere. You know, I went to the gym in Slovenia, right? And it was in Bled, but it was kind of like away from the tourist area. And it just seemed much healthier and there was a good vibe. And, you know, the guys were kind of blokes. It was kind of funny, kind of old school. You know, they had some like nudie picture up on the wall, which I thought was funny because you wouldn't get away with that in England. And they had like beer in the fridge, but then there was kids there and there was women there and everyone was hanging out. It was much more intergenerational. It just felt healthier. I mean, you'll see that in some Mediterranean countries as well. Like you'll still see it in Spain, Portugal, a bit more community, a bit more just healthy. And, you know, they're still having a beer and having their lives. They were dudes, you know, but it was, and they were very friendly. And I just thought, wow, this is not an experience I've had in a gym in Northern Europe or Western Europe or North America. It wasn't people Instagramming, they're, you know, narcissistically doing selfies. And yeah, I mean, I've had a fair few trips to Slovenia. I certainly don't think it's perfect. And I think you've got different problems, but yeah, for me, there's less of that decadence. You know, like I mean, you know, Berlin is definitely like has always been a decadent city, but there's different problems.
So, what are those problems? I think
Yeah.
everyone wants to hear that.
I am not going to say anything nasty about a country I'm about to move to. But I mean, like you guys have studied embodiment with me, right? Like, what would
Yeah.
you say is the embodiment of Slovenia? Like, there's obviously it's different people, different times, but in general, what would you say is the embodiment of Slovenia?
It's humbleness.
Humbleness for sure.
Yeah. And, you know, like stay quiet as a mouse, you know.
Low
don't-
self-worth.
Yeah, so humble is a beautiful thing, right? People are very teachable. I love teaching there, but there's a downside to humbleness.
Mm,
So like that's different from like Americans who like take up a lot of space. They're like,
Yeah.
hey, this is my new thing. Everyone look at me. You know, like we don't do that in England, and you definitely don't do that in Slovenia. And that could be a problem. Like there's probably some Slovenian with a great idea who should really put it into the world, and they're maybe sort of holding back a little bit, for example.
mhm.
Yeah.
We'll do that all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, so that's an embodied thing, right? I can help people with that. I can coach people with that. And you know, there's always a problem because any embodiment has 2 sides. So the humbleness is very lovely to, you know, talk with you ladies again and to teach there. But then there's this other side, right? And the Americans, they're like, what I learned from American teachers, for example, is how to be big and bold. And they'd say, I'm amazing. And they put themselves forward. And they say, like, I tell you, that, for example, I have a podcast, right? Americans message me all the time saying, hey, I should be on your podcast. And like English people just would never do that. And I've literally never had a Slovenian do that. So it's like it's always funny for us, right? But like they just put themselves forward. So, you know, like there's pros and cons to that, right? So yeah, we can learn from every culture, but Slovenia's got a few downsides, but it's not too chaotic like some of Southern Europe. It's not too uptight like Northern Europe. And it's less traumatized than a lot of the other you know, ex-communist. I know you had a very sort of light version of communism there, and it's like it's far less traumatized than say when I work in Russia, Ukraine, even Poland. You don't have that same armoring, and that it's great. Like I have Polish friends, they're like tough, they're like badass dudes, you know. But it's a little too much. It's a little armored. It's a little hard to be intimate with them, you know. And there's still an availability to Slovenians for connection, which I think is nice. But without being too fucking sensitive either. So to me, that's a good combination.
Okay, that's nice. I think.
Yeah.
I think Slovenians who will listen this, they will gladly accept you in our country.
Well, hopefully. I mean, you know, there's always someone who's offended by my jokes, but I think Slovenia is a good bet. And you know, like anywhere, there's people that like me and don't. But yeah, I just say also don't be too hard on yourselves. Like people are really that's also a feature of decadence, actually. People are really self-critical of themselves and their own culture. Like, you ask the average British person, what do you love about Britain? And they just sarcastically would say, oh, slavery or something, right? And instead of saying the Beatles or Shakespeare or our sense of humor, or, you know, there's so many good things about Britain. Like, I don't hate Britain. I mean, luckily, because I've lived abroad, I married someone from abroad, I've got family from another country, you know, I see the pros and cons in most cultures.
Yeah, that seems like a healthy way to to live. Is it time for the final 5 questions, or do we still have
We've got a
time?
little time.
Because for the last part, we have prepared like a final fun 5.
Fun 5, great.
Fun
I did
5.
an interview yesterday and I did 15 questions in 15 minutes. So it's no problem. I broke the record apparently. So fun 5 is easy.
Okay, yeah, we can do the question and then maybe elaborate on them.
Yeah, we'll see where
As you like.
Okay, so first one, if you could have a superpower, which one would it be?
I already have a superpower. I think we all have superpowers, right? Our superpower, I teach a model that our superpowers come from our trauma. So your trauma creates a problem, but it also creates a superpower. So, like, I'd rather focus people on what their actual superpowers are than the imaginary ones. I mean, I have a recurrent dream that I can kind of like bounce fly. It's kind of like half flying, half bouncing, and that looks really fun. So yeah, if I could pick a fun one, it would be like bounce flying, like in my dreams.
Like a flea.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, and I'm, whoa, and I'm like flying through space, and I really feel like I can do it. It's like half lucid, and then when I wake up, I'm like, oh, I can't do it. So yeah, that one.
But I also think the first thing he mentioned is quite important.
Yeah.
So could you please tell us more about that? Like how to turn your trauma into your superpower?
Yeah, so every trauma has a pro and a con, like cultures, right? So, you know, like sometimes people have very severe trauma. It was better to just look at it like medically, like PTSD. But if people have got mild trauma or they've healed a lot of severe trauma, like in my case, what they're left with is unusual abilities that have grown as a way of dealing with that trauma. Yeah. So, for example, one of mine is I don't give a shit. So I had an alcoholic dad and I lived in a small village, and that was terrible when I was a kid. But at a certain point, I just went, fuck it, right? I just stopped caring. And that is a fantastic superpower. Like, I could walk up to a woman and say, excuse me, you look beautiful. Would you like to go on a date with me? And most English guys couldn't do that in a million years. And why could I do that? Because I don't care if she says no. If she says, no, you're ugly, I'm a lesbian, I'll say, fine, have a lovely day. Walk off, nothing, no problem. Right? So like the superpower of kind of confidence and comes from that trauma of being like shamed in my village, you know? So yeah, everybody's got one of them. Some people are super sensitive, some people are super funny, some people are super careful, and they're really good at analyzing everything and making sure everyone's safe. You know, there's all these things. So I'm not saying trauma's good, obviously trauma's bad, but there can be something good that comes out of it, at least in the long run.
That was so nice.
Yeah.
See, receptive audience. I love you. Okay.
Okay, next question. If you would be a fruit, what would you be and why?
These are like bad date questions, right? If I was on a date with someone that had never dated before and they'd gone on the internet, these are like bad date questions.
We are preparing you for dating in Slovenia.
Oh no, I never should have thought with my wife. Now I have to date. People would ask me what fruit I am. I'm a tomato because everyone thinks it's a vegetable. I don't know. What fruit am I? I am the fruit of the Garden of Eden. There we go. The fruit of temptation. I am the fruit of my parents' loins. I am the fruit from the tree of life. But I was thinking for some reason of a strawberry, a nice English strawberry. I was thinking, yeah.
That's a great question of answer. Thanks. Okay, third one. If you had a chance to make one universal law, what would it be?
No one should be allowed to make universal laws. That's like an extreme form of fascism. I don't think I should be given that kind of power to make a universal law. It would be like try and be nice to each other, guys, something like that. It wouldn't even be a law. It'd just be like a hint, you know, like try and be kind. Yeah, maybe something about not hurting children. I don't know, like are they protected already? So yeah. Something like if I was to be, I don't know, I wouldn't want that level of responsibility. Here's the thing, right? I was actually in charge of an organization the size that had the population of a small country for a few weeks. Okay, so I was in charge of an embodiment conference, 500,000 people turned up. It's about the population of Luxembourg. Okay, not even Slovenia, Luxembourg. Yeah, it's the population of Ljubljana, more or less. Okay, and it almost destroyed me, and I don't think I made lots of good decisions. And people, it's real easy to say, if I were in charge of the world, I'd make the good decisions, but I don't think I would. I think someone smarter than, wiser than me deserves that job.
Are you going for the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
one?
yeah. If you had a time machine, would you go back in time or forward in future?
These are bad date questions. At least they're good. I haven't been asked them before on an interview. Let's see. Well, I'd say, first of all, if anyone's a woman, they'd go back in time, right? Because there's nowhere. Sorry, they go forward in time. There's no place in history you'd want to be as a woman. I guess I like modern things. I mean, to live or just to look?
Just to look, like you can go back in the present.
Okay, can I look at the future and see all the crazy things that have happened, and then go back to now to sort of stop some of the bad things, or is that not allowed? Is that like a time paradox?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
This we didn't add additional rules, so
I'd go back in time just before COVID and buy like Netflix stock, and I'd buy Bitcoin 10 years ago. Yeah, I'd go back in time just to make some money, just briefly. So buy some stocks in Apple and stuff like Tesla, stuff like that. And then I go forward in time afterwards to see what crazy stuff was happening, so I could go back and then do something positive. So then I'd be rich and helping the world. There we go, both.
That's a good one.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
We're getting to know you pretty well.
You acted.
Crack the code.
I think this should go on your dating profile.
This is. Can you write this up for me afterwards? Anyone?
Okay. I think that's the last one, right? Yeah.
No, this one as well.
Yeah. 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another one. Would you rather?
Okay. Would you still love me if I was a puddle? This is one of those like girl questions that makes no sense. Okay, come on.
It's a freaky one. Would you rather have a head too big for your body or a high-pitched baby voice?
I like to have a deep voice, and I already kind of have a big head. Actually, I did have one potential girlfriend looking at me, she was like, I was like, why are you looking at my head? And she's like, how can she said, well, I have Asian genes. And she was looking at the size of my head and going, if we're going to have children together, that like your babies are going to have big heads, and that's not going to end well. So she was thinking about giving birth. So yeah, I'm going to go for the big head because I already have a big head. And everyone knows I have a big head. I'm for myself. So yeah, what was it? Big head and but not a
high-pitched baby voice.
Oh, I like having a deep voice, but that's
Okay, how are we with time?
We've got loads of time. More silly questions.
No, that's all the silliness we have for now.
Okay.
So is there anything you'd like to share that we didn't ask you? That
maybe some resources for people who don't know about embodiment yet. Where could they find them and stuff like that? We will link them below the video, so don't worry. Just so
resources, lots of resources. So embodimentunlimited.com is the main website. There's a start pack on embodiment there that has my book for free there, which is sold lots of copies on Amazon, but we give away a PDF for free. And there's a pack there for coaches there. A lot of people like my Instagram because there's little videos of me doing embodied coaching. So you like 1-minute coaching sessions. You can see those on Instagram. We have a podcast, the Embodiment podcast, where it's like 550 episodes or something. Yeah, I think there's all the YouTube, Facebook, the usual resources, but they're the main ones. But I'd say embodimentunlimited.com is the main resource. I'm slightly jealous of this dog, by the way, because it's getting cuddles from you two now. So for the podcast listeners can't see that there's a dog who's just getting to hang out on their couch.
But she used the American style. She didn't ask or anything.
No, he just pushed away. Yeah, just like, stop giving Mark attention. I need some love. We all need a hug sometimes.
I also remember that you said that you have a workshop here in Slovenia. Maybe we could repeat that one more time.
Yeah, you can get in contact with me on any of those platforms and we'll send it to you. If you go to embodimentunlimited.com, there's a live events calendar. And that will have the latest, depending on when people are listening to this. But I'm going to be doing 2 or 3 workshops in Slovenia this year. Let's have a look. The next one is actually not, it will be up on the website soon. And that's on March. Hang on, my calendar's not loading. March, donation-based, free evening on the 8th. If people just want to taste, or if people want to do the workshops, 9th and 10th of March in Ljubljana. And that's by Ava. How do you pronounce Ava's second name? I've known her for like 5 years and can't say it.
Brovinski.
Exactly. Okay, so that's the other person, my host, so good friend.
Yeah, Eva. We know Eva.
Yeah, everyone knows Eva, but it's like she does some wonderful embodiment coaching and nature connection stuff. So I want to give her a shout out. She's there's a few people who've studied with me a little bit, like you two in Slovenia, but she's the one who's really mentored her and studied with me the most. So give her some love.
Okay. Mark, thank you for your time, and I think we'll see you soon.
Yeah, I'll be there soon. So it was a real pleasure, and loved all in Slovenia.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.